I just go back and forth though. Is there an optimal way, or is everyone just unique and
Yeah.
problem solves move? Like, sure, I have like KPIs, but am I gonna correct this even if this isn't the way like I think it should be, or is this the way they're moving, making them good at what they do?
I think there's a fine balance. Everybody's anatomy is different, but there's definitely like positions of compromise that you should look out for. I feel, yeah, you want to be strong in positions of compromise, but you also don't want to train, I feel like, into those and encourage those. But that's also like the PT in me as well.
Yeah. What's like your main, or like a few examples either that you've seen or that you look out for?
The
I guess that's
knees,
broad.
the knees pretty easy. Just looking for valgus varus. I feel like foot excess eversion or supination is pretty easy. With like baseball, you can see like compensations, like if you don't have good scapular mobility or if you're compensating elsewhere, like whether that's arm angle or what that looks like. I feel like there's certain things that over a period of time is going to come back to haunt you, even if you're being efficient right now and you're not necessarily feeling anything. But I feel like it gets a little bit more complicated with stuff in the shoulder because there's the scapula. But I don't know. I just feel like there's patterns in the knee and foot that I feel are pretty easy to correct. You definitely want to cater to the person. Like you don't want to, if you do try to change it too much, like they might not have the range of motion to even get to where you want them to be. So like understanding how they're feeling while you're changing it and just going slow. I don't know. There's always modifications, right? You can always put something under your ankle. You can always alter exercises to allow them to get in positions where they do feel comfortable, where you're still training good stuff. But yeah, I'm excited to get into more of the functional movement screens, and there's like a SFMA part of PT as well. I think it's really cool to just see the body as a whole, see what is truly limiting movement. But it's interesting because, yeah, you don't want to take people too far out of their norm if they are being successful. But there's a balance.
Yeah, I always struggle with movement screens too, because first of all, from the psychology side, you give them a score or something, tell them what's wrong with them, and that makes them conscious about that, even if they, I don't know, feel and operate fine. And it's also, is this actually impacting the way they move or play? And then I think of something having like stiff ankles or something like that. Like I remember, I think it was at Northwestern, there was a track kid who had like terrible ankle mobility, but because he was like so stiff, like he could pop off the ground like crazy. So it's okay, they have this low score for ankle mobility, but is that actually helping them to be better? And that's just one case. So I'm sure there's times where fixing that is probably a good thing, but especially because I never really had the one-on-one setting. It was always teams. I just tried to attack it more by having a wide range of different movements and not being repetitive with anything or neglecting like any joint patterns, if that makes sense.
Like
Just being
that
smarter
would
with volume and
that would terrify me, having a wide range of movements and things that I, even if I teach it, that I'm not actually watching, terrifies me. Like, because I would just be afraid that something in that movement is, like you said, the knee valgus or whatever, like the foot's not loading how I think it should load, right? Like all that type of stuff just like terrifies me. So I would not do good in like a team setting.
you're not going to see every single rep, but you see every guy at least during a session, and I feel like you can't analyze it super closely, but I think you can get a decent look at it. And I always like doing like a bottoms up approach. I can't remember who taught that, but just starting with the foot and then moving up to the knee with, I guess, any sort of movement. But starting there, so you get a pretty good look from there. But especially with like Northwestern, where it's lower level guys, there's a lot more teaching like early on. But guys at the D1 level are just like, they're at that level for a reason. Even if they're not great lifters, they're pretty great athletes or adapters. They're able to figure stuff out pretty quickly, even though they haven't done it before. Teach it once or twice, and then they usually get a good grip on it. But I don't know. It's just part of it, working with 35, 40 guys. You can't see every rep of every single thing. Unless you want to do stuff like on a whistle or just 3 movements and all like cadence, but
Yeah,
that's not fun for anyone.
hate that.
I hate
No,
that.
that's worse.
I see that on like Twitter, like high school teams, like doing
On a
cleans
whistle.
on a whistle or something. Let them have fun. Like,
Yeah.
I get that working on technique and stuff, but let athletes athlete, man.
Yeah.
Step in when you need to.
Yeah, I think you could certainly cover a lot in different sessions of teaching before a session or whatever. Explaining, like, here's one thing I'm seeing for the last week. Like, we really need to correct this. Like, when you guys are doing this movement, your foot's just, like, going dead and falling in. And you've got to make sure that your foot's still loading so it can load up the chain type of a thing, and explain that. So I'm definitely with that.
I don't know. Could be wrong.
Probably not. It's just different
Just out here,
settings,
dog.
and a doubt.
I think there's a right way to go about movement screens. You're not just going to give them the results and be like, here's your limitations. I think it's really important to educate your client or your patient on what the movement screen is telling you. Tell them literally how you interpret it and what's modifiable, why is this important, what will this lead to, like how are we going to address it going forward. Equip them with the information they need to know so that they're in a good place mentally, so it's not necessarily a limitation but something that they can work on and something that they can improve with time, right? Because that gives them a purpose, that gives them a goal to train for, seeing that progression over time, whether that's like range of motion. With physical therapy, you can measure a ton of different things, so you can see progress over time. In a weight room, nobody's really going to measure your ankle dorsiflexion, but I feel like you can gamify things where you're getting access to that. And yeah, maybe that you see some of the fastest sprinters, like they're stiff, like they get some of their power from the stiffness and the passive tension of their tendons and of their muscles. So it's a fine balance. It's hard, but yeah, I think patient education is huge in just like treating the patient and informing them and equipping them to do things under their own power, because you're not always going to be with them, right? Physical therapists maybe see patients once or twice a week, and so it's you got to have them doing the right things when they're on their own to actually make a change, and so that they don't keep coming back to you with the same problem. But it's such a different, like, PT versus a weight room with 40 people is a vastly different environment. So I don't know how you would do it in a controlled manner with 40 athletes at the same time.